Cindy V. Hill tells the police how, for days, she was taken back and forth between rooms in her captor's home and assaulted and tortured in a number of ways. V. Hill is taken to the hospital for examination as officers call for reinforcements.
When they responded and began to get initial information from her, it became clear that it was probably something that they were not going to be able to handle with their resources. They contacted the state police.
Knowing now that the 911 hang-up came from David Ray's home, law enforcement converge on the source of the call. 513 Bass Road.
The Sheriff's Department and the Park Rangers arrived at the scene here. They do what's called a safety sweep inside the residence. They're looking to find if there are additional victims inside, if there's anybody that's in need of assistance. Inside the house, it was a mess. There were pegboards these devices were hanging on, D-rings in the ceiling, and ropes and pulleys, and a box where people would be kept shackled with a fan on it for an air source. We were obviously dealing with somebody that was not normal.
He had books on Satanism. He had medical books also, really complex medical books that gave him the knowledge he needed to do the things that he wanted to do.
It was bizarre.
Finding no one inside, an APB is put out for the home's residents, 59-year-old David Parker Ray and 39-year-old Cindy Hendy. Less than 15 minutes later, police pull over David Parker Ray's truck and detain the couple.
David was on his way down the road with Hendy, and they were looking for their captive, and they got caught 2 blocks away.
When the police question Ray and Hendy, the two admit to looking for Cindy V. Hill, but provide an interesting explanation.
Initially, David and Cindy Hendy's story to us regarding the abduction of Cindy V. Hill was that it was a form of humanitarian aid. They claimed that they had abducted her against her will, but it was for her own good, to help her kick a heroin addiction. So they brought her here, chained her up inside the house, and kept her there with a bucket in order to get her through the most drastic withdrawal period of heroin.
Authorities don't believe them, and David Parker Ray and Cindy Hendy are arrested and taken into custody. On March 23, 1999, the New Mexico State Police crime team begins processing Ray's house. The police realize they don't have the resources to deal with what they've found on their own. They call in the FBI.
I think it's safe to say that nothing that was inside that house was anything any of us had experienced before or come across before, except maybe on a movie somewhere. It was just completely out of the realm of our experience.
Investigators open a padlocked semi-truck trailer next to the home.
Once we gained access to that, its purpose was very clear. It was a very sinister little travel trailer.
For the first time, investigators get a look inside what David Parker Ray calls the toy box.
When they went into the toy box, they found hundreds of torture devices. They found leg spreaders, soldering irons, chains, rubber ropes.
There were intubation tubes, an oxygen tank, just the most bizarre devices I had ever seen.
He was a mechanic, and so a lot of these things he designed himself. He had a machine that would shock women's breasts electrically. He would hook up this machine to their breasts and then turn on the power and then increase the power as they screamed for mercy.
This is someone who spent a lot of time, money, and effort putting this together. It did not just happen overnight.
The biggest piece, of course, was the gynecological chair, a big black chair with red straps all over it, where he would tie women down. He had a fancy camera with screens, so he would force the women to watch what he was doing to them.
Everything designed to work, everything designed to be readily available, everything designed to torture. It was chilling.
So if you went to his property, it was just a little piece of property on the edge of Elephant Butte Lake, And then right in front of his house was the torture trailer. It's hard to believe that nobody ever heard somebody yelling or screaming. He carried out this form of mass torture right in the middle of a retirement community.
It was so well organized and there was so much of it, it was clear that this wasn't something that had just been going on for a couple of weeks.
It was his little world that he put together after all these years of practice.
Sexual sadism develops over a long period of time. It's not something that you wake up with at 60 years of age and begin to experience. It is evolutionary.
Working together, the police and federal investigators catalog everything they find on David Parker Ray's property.
At any given time during this investigation, there were between 25 and 35 FBI or state police evidence techs here.
Along with the FBI, local and national press soon descend on 513 Bass Road. After seeing a story on the news about the arrest, Angie Montano comes forward and provides a detailed statement of her days in captivity.
She described essentially the same type of sexual assault, sexual torture, and binding that had been described by Cindy V. Hill.
She was in the toy box. She was in there for 3 days. She got it the worst you can get it.
On March 30th, 1999, an FBI agent discovers a videotape inside the toy box. The tape shows David Ray with a woman strapped into the chair. Her face is completely bound with duct tape. The unidentifiable woman has an intricate tattoo on her leg.
We watched the videotape that had been discovered by the evidence techs from the toy box. The person that was in the tape was not readily identifiable. We knew that she had an ornate and unique tattoo on her leg and felt that that might be sufficient to identify her, or at least help to identify her. So we gave that information to the media.
The public outreach works when the FBI receives a call from someone who believes she knows the tattooed victim. The caller is Kelly Garrett's former mother-in-law.
She heard it on the news about David Parker Ray and how he had kidnapped Cindy V. Hill. She just put two and two together and realized that he was the one that took me home that day. That's the reason I had been gone for 3 days, was because of David.
Investigators travel to Colorado to interview the possible victim.
Then they came up and interviewed me and was asking me all kinds of questions about tattoos and my feet and where I was and if I could remember a certain part of my life. After I showed them the tattoos that I have, they showed me pictures of my tattoos that they had taken off of a video, and I had to identify myself from those pictures. After I seen the pictures that they showed me, everything started to click. So I knew all of my nightmares that I had been having, they weren't just nightmares, they were true.
Kelly finally recalls the night at the Blue Waters, where she believes Jesse drugged her drink before delivering her to David Parker Ray.
And then I started remembering other things. I remember being at Jesse's dad's house. One of them held a knife to my throat, while the other one put handcuffs on me. Then I remember being tied to a table. They had duct tape on my eyes and mouth. I could see under the duct tape where it had come loose from my cheeks. I could see David walking around. I could see all kinds of sex toys hanging on the walls, posters, whips, and chains. There were several times I lost all hope. And I just kept telling him, I want to go home. I want to go home to my husband. I just want to go home.
Sexual sadists who act out on non-consenting partners, they don't have a conscience. They are not restrained in their behavior because of their lack of emotions and feelings.
Based on the interview with Kelly, David Ray's daughter, Jessie, is arrested for the kidnap and assault of Kelly Garrett.
Jessie Ray is the one who took Kelly Garrett over to her father David's house. She pled guilty to kidnapping, Jesse was given 9 years in prison.